So Dylan and Daniel, congratulations on the film. Why don't we start with you, Dylan, and talk a little bit about you're both the writer and director on the film. Talk a little bit about the process of writing this script and why you wanted to tackle this topic of OCD.
Um, it's a very semi-autobiographical story about my own life. Um, and I wrote it pretty quickly. I wrote it because I didn't want to write it this is my life probably like 8 years ago or something like that. And I didn't want to write it when I was going through things. I wanted to wait until I was past everything and had processed it. Um, but I didn't want to wait till I was so far removed that I kind of couldn't access it or touch it. So I wanted to wait till I was right in that sweet spot. And I had another film I was working on going into the pandemic, and there was a lot more scope with that film and a lot more logistics, and it was shooting in a foreign country. So obviously when the pandemic happened, that put the kibosh on that. So I turned to something that was a little bit more in my backyard, something more insular, something more personal. So I wrote the script pretty quickly by my standards, and it came together pretty quick. I think it's going to be 2 years from when I put the first word to page to when we premiere at South by next week. I was thinking about it the other day. It's going to be pretty much just 2 years to the day from first word to premiere. So in our little indie world, I think that's a pretty fast turnaround. Yeah.
Daniel, talk a little bit about your character, who I guess is somewhat based on Dylan. And what spoke to you in this script about this topic? I mean, is this something do you know people have had experiences like this? Is this something you've dealt with ever, or how did you access this role?
It's not anything I knew about at all. This was sort of, I read the script and I was sort of just so taken aback that this was a thing. I think OCD has been somewhat misrepresented in film and TV, and sort of really kind of read read past that and sort of understand the scope of it and the complexities of it was something that I was so fascinated by, especially because it's something that doesn't manifest itself in any sort of outward rituals. It's all sort of, behind one's eyes. And so to see the potential that people are suffering in this terrible way was just so heartbreaking. And it was really just an incredible world to sort of dive into and explore. And yeah, so no experience whatsoever.
Uh, for both of you, let's start with you, Daniel. Talk a little bit about a scene that was maybe spoke to you the most in the writing, and Daniel, for you in the acting in the film.
Do you want to start?
Well, now I want to hear your response. What spoke to you the most? I mean, I wrote it, so it all spoke to me. But what's the one that stood out to you?
There's a scene later on in the film, and I want to be careful not to give anything away. There's a scene later on in the film. My character Cooper works in a rehab facility, and he is somebody who's white knuckling sort of his diagnosis and his mental health issues, and it's an amazing monologue that Dillon wrote where I'm speaking to a character named Brandon, who is played by Jeff Baker, who were always butting heads in rehab. And there's a kind of a very cathartic scene that happens in the film where, as I'm trying to sort of give him a final opportunity to sort of take responsibility for his life and for his disease, I'm sort of starting to realize that I can't do this on my own either. And it's through this vulnerability that we're able to heal and to move past the anger and rage and sadness. And it's just so well written, and it was such a great scene to do on the day. And I still think about it sometimes. I still sort of repeat it to myself every once in a while driving around, because it's the core of what the film is to me. So that was the first one that stood out. I was like, oh man, I can't wait to
Honestly, that's the exact one that I was just thinking about. I want to see what you're going to say, but that was the exact scene. For me, it's a little different, I guess, having written the script, and I edited the film as well. So I've just sat with the material so much that I find that now every time I watch the film, something, a new scene or a new moment kind of sits out with me. But that is particularly, that monologue in that scene is just really, it's really that kind of the crux of the theme of the movie, and it's all leading to that sort of like sea change for the character in terms of his realization, and the way Daniel and Jeffrey play that scene. It just, I was telling my girlfriend the other day, but it doesn't. I mean, I wrote the scene. I was there on set, and I've edited the scene, and I've spent hours with that scene alone. And it doesn't matter. Still, every time I see that film, I get chills. I just went and saw the DCP print in a theater last week to sign off on. I was alone in a theater, and I'm watching the film, and again, that scene every time, like goosebumps when we get to that scene. And I don't know, there's something that kind of like transcends the writing that they brought to it. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. So what do you hope the takeaway is for the audience? I mean, I picked out a few lines that I liked in it or I thought were really interesting. And one was, imagine trying to fix your mind and you can't trust the mind that you're trying to fix. I thought
Mm-hmm.
that was a pretty interesting insight into it. What's an insight or a takeaway that you hope that the audience has about this condition?
Well, for me, I just want the takeaway of the film to be that all of us need the help of other people, and that's okay. Um, it's a film that's very focused on mental health, but I think that it's also a much more universal appeal than that. I think that it's going to be not quite as niche as some people might think it is, because it's not only dealing with mental health; it's obviously dealing with um, how mental health affects all of the loved ones around somebody who experiences that. So I just want to destigmatize, first and foremost, this condition, because even me, I mean, I had my own, as a sufferer from this disease. I was late onset, and so I was already, I was going into my 30s when this kind of presented itself, and I had my own hangups and my own worldview points that came into play, judging myself as I was going through this. Because it was just so misunderstood. I didn't understand. It's a hard thing to understand. I know some people who've kind of watched the film who they've gotten, the film is giving them a bit of an insight into it, and I do as best as I can, but they still are, wow, I still don't, I don't understand this fully even after having seen the film. So it's a tough thing to wrap your head around. So I just want people to kind of understand, first and foremost, that we all need the help of other people, and that's okay. And vulnerability is courage.
Daniel, what for you is something you want the audience to take away from it?
Yeah, I second that. I think for me, I think there's something sort of great in sort of the specificity of the specific condition, that it sort of then ends up transcending that disorder. It's not about OCD necessarily. It's about, again, yeah, people helping each other and the courage and vulnerability, but also that being able to articulate that you're just not okay or you're not doing so well. I think we've all sort of gotten into the habit of just like, yeah, it's all good, and we pick and choose who we open up to for sure. But I think that there needs to be more of that, to just kind of to be in company with one another and be vulnerable. I think that's the hope. Yeah, yeah, something like that.
Thanks for watching the You Interview channel. With over 3,000 original celebrity videos, we have one of the largest collections of celebrity interviews anywhere. So remember to like and comment on our videos and subscribe to the channel. If you want to get more involved, you can become a member of the channel. Membership has its perks. You can see exclusive celebrity videos and get the opportunity to ask our celebrity guests questions. We can't wait to hear from you.